Hello, a very good afternoon and welcome to the News International Edition on this 6th day of March 2023. We are coming to you live from our Vision Group headquarters here in Kampala, Uganda. I'm Emma Akwero. Let's start our news today from Bangladesh, where a fire has destroyed 2,000 shelters at a Rohingya refugee camp in the southeastern part of the country on Sunday, leaving around 12,000 people homeless, an official has said. The fire broke out at around 2:45 p.m. at Camp Number 1 in Kutupalong, one of the world's largest refugee settlements, and rapidly engulfed the bamboo and tarpaulin shelters. Majid Rahman, Bangladesh Refugee Commissioner, has reported.
At least 35 mosques and 21 learning centers for the refugees were also destroyed, though there were no reports of any injuries or deaths. The blaze was brought under control in less than 3 hours. It was not clear how the fire started. The authorities have ordered an investigation. Fires are common in the camps where nearly 1 million Rohingya refugees live in squalid conditions. Most of them fled a military crackdown in Myanmar's Rakhine state in 2017 and took refuge in Bangladesh. A Bangladesh Defense Ministry report last month said that between January 2021 and December 2022, there were 222 fire incidents in the Rohingya camps, including 60 cases of arson. In March 2021, in what was the worst blaze in the Rohingya camps, at least 15 people were killed and some 50,000 were displaced after a fire engulfed an entire block in a settlement.
Now, Afghan universities reopened on Monday after a winter break, but only men returned to class, with a heartbreaking ban by the Taliban authorities on women in higher education still in force. The university ban is one of several restrictions imposed on women since the Taliban took over power in August 2021 and has sparked global outrage, including across the Muslim world.
This is gender discrimination against girls because Islam allows us to pursue higher education. Nobody should stop us from learning, says Rahela, 22. The Taliban government imposed the ban after accusing women students of ignoring a strict dress code and a requirement to be accompanied by a male relative to and from campus. Most universities had already introduced gender-segregated entrances and classrooms, as well as allowing women to be taught only by female professors or elderly men. It's painful to see that thousands of girls are deprived of education today. Mohammad Habib Zada, a student of computer science at Herat University, told AFP. Waheda Durrani, a journalism student in Herati until she was barred from university last year, said the Taliban government wanted women to remain uneducated. If Afghan girls and women get educated, they will never accept a government that exploits Islam and the Quran, she said. They will stand for their rights. That's the fear the government has. At the capital's private Rana University, male students trickled back to classes on Monday. Posters dating from before the ban showing how women needed to dress were still on display in the university corridors. Several Taliban officials say the ban on women's education is temporary, but despite promises, they have failed to reopen secondary schools for girls, which have been closed for more than a year. The authorities have wheeled out a litany of excuses for the closure, from a lack of funds to the time needed to remodel the syllabus along Islamic lines. The reality, according to some Taliban officials, is that the ultra-conservative clerics advising Afghanistan's supreme leader, Haibatullah Akhundzada, are deeply skeptical of modern education for women. Taliban authorities have effectively squeezed women out of public life since retaking power. Women have been removed from many government jobs or are paid a fraction of their former salary to stay at home. Women are also barred from going to parks, fairs, gyms, and public baths and must cover up in public.
And from the United States, Selma is reckoning. U.S. President Joe Biden said in front of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, before crossing it to commemorate the 58th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. The right to vote and to have your vote counted is the threshold of democracy and liberty. Within it, anything is possible, Biden said, where a civil rights march of hundreds of peaceful activists was violently suppressed by police on March 7, 1965. We have more.
President Joe Biden on Sunday stressed the importance of knowing the whole of U.S. history, both good and bad, as he commemorated the brutal suppression 58 years ago of a civil rights march in Selma, Alabama. History matters, the president said during a speech at the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where a march of hundreds of peaceful activists was violently suppressed by police on March 7, 1965.
The new law here in Alabama, among other things, enacted a new congressional map that discriminated against black voters by failing to include what should have been a new predominantly black district. That case, as you all know better than I, is in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. And my U.S. Department of Justice has joined many of you in arguing that the map violates the Voting Rights Act.
Bloody Sunday only catalyzed support for black rights and led a few months later to the passage of the Voting Rights Act, a federal law prohibiting racial discrimination in voting. The marchers forced the country to confront the hard truth, Biden said, accusing today's Republican opposition of trying to hide the truth of history. No matter how hard some people try, we can't just choose to learn what we want to know and not what we should know, he said, as debate rages over how U.S. history is taught in America's schools.
After a deadly insurrection on January the 6th, we must remain vigilant. In January, I signed the Electoral Count Reform Act to protect the will of the people and the peaceful transfer of power. But we know that we must get the votes in Congress to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. I made it clear, I will not let a filibuster obstruct the sacred right to vote, the right of any other right to vote from there.
We should learn everything, the good, the bad, the truth of who we are as a nation, and everyone should know the truth of Selma. Several conservative states have passed laws since 2020 to ban the teaching of critical race theory, an academic discipline investigating systemic racism in American history. Several conservative states have passed laws since 2020 to ban the teaching of critical race theory, an academic discipline investigating systemic racism in American society.
On this bridge of her beloved Selma, they were called to the altar of democracy, unsure of their fate, but certain of the cause was righteous.
Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, considered a favorite for his party's 2024 presidential nomination, recently defended a ban on a high school African American Studies course, railing against it as indoctrination that pushes social justice topics such as queer theory. In his speech, Biden said the country must remain vigilant in defending voting freedoms, saying the Voting Rights Act had been gutted by the conservative-dominated Supreme Court and threatened by dozens of voting reform laws passed in conservative-led states. Critics say these changes make it harder for black and other minority people to cast ballots. The 80-year-old president, whose political career has relied heavily on the support of African-American voters, has urged Congress to adopt major electoral reform, but Republicans have blocked it.
And from Pakistan, an animated map shows the town of Dada in the southeastern province of Balochistan, where a suicide bomb attack killed 9 police officers and wounded 16 others. Security forces have been battling a years-long insurgency by militants in Balochistan. A suicide bomber killed 9 police officers and wounded 16 others on Monday in an attack on their truck in southeastern Pakistan, officials said. The suicide bomber was riding a motorbike and hit the truck from behind, senior police official Abdul Hai Hami told reporters. The incident took place at Dada, the main town of Kachi district, some 120 kilometers southeast of Quetta in Bakolokistan. Mahmoud Netozia, police chief of Kachi district, told reporters the police were returning from a week-long cattle show where they had been providing security. Security forces have been battling a years-long insurgency by Balok militants, demanding what they say is a fairer share of the province's wealth, as well as attacks by the Pakistani Taliban. That's all the international news we had for you this afternoon. Thank you for watching and do have yourselves a fantastic evening.
Gossip is for amateurs.
Yes. And indeed, they always question. He doesn't want to talk about